Well, this is a day that many people in Springfield have thought would be coming for a while because apparently at a press conference today is when the indictment, I think, of Governor Rod Blagojevich will be announced. So far what we've seen is an affidavit which runs more than 70 pages. What the feds did, they had heard that he was doing some deals, and a lot of the allegations involved in the affidavit involved tape recording of telephone conversations that the governor had at his campaign headquarters and at his home. I have given a quick skim to the more than 70 pages that were there, and what comes very clear is that at least, and John Harris, the governor's chief of staff, who came on after Lon Monk left, is also discussed significantly in this document. They are talking about some very odd things, given the cloud that the governor has been under with investigations for several years. They are talking about Harris and the governor in particular, and some other advisors to the governor, talking about what they can get for the governor or his family in exchange for appointing various candidates to U.S. Senate. The governor is quoted in these telephone conversations that are excerpted in the document that we've seen so far as saying, "I'm not giving the Senate seat away for nothing." Stuff like that it's worth a lot. They thought that Patty Blagojevich, the governor's wife, could end up on corporate boards, that the president-elect, which would be Barack Obama, who is discussed in less than pleasant terms by the governor, at least at one point, with a little bad language, could work with private organizations to help get Patty Blagojevich on boards, and maybe we could get $150,000 a year, which would help family income because we're in trouble. The governor himself seems to think that perhaps if he names someone that the president-elect wants to the Senate seat, that he could be named Director of Health and Human Services. He and his advisors also discussed the possibility of being named to Department of Energy, although it usually goes to someone from Texas, but because he knows about coal, maybe he'd have a chance. He talked about, if I can't get anything for the Senate seat, I'll just name myself. That'll get me out of the way. These are, of course, phone conversations. I'm sure we'll hear more detail on what they mean and how they're interpreted. But it's rather fascinating how raw this is as far as the basic idea and what the feds get involved in is you can't exchange government service for anything for personal profit. So getting a job, a position, or money, it's just out of the question, and these are the things that are just openly discussed, apparently, by Rod Blagojevich. And this taping didn't start until October, and the last that I noticed was sometime in early or mid-November. So this was going on right up to the moment, so you have to wonder, with all the legal pressure that Governor Blagojevich has been under, how could he possibly do this? The other new allegation, there are also allegations about pay-to-play and talking to road contractors about, maybe we can hold up the tollway increase in lanes on the tollway, which is a giant project, until we get hundreds of thousands of dollars in campaign contributions from these guys. There is actually discussion of, I think it's $8 million that would go to Children's Memorial Hospital in Chicago, one of the prime institutions, well-known institutions for doing good in Chicago. And there is discussion between the governor and advisors on, can we hold up that state money that's supposed to go to that and say it's because we're in a bad financial situation until we get like $50,000 from the head of the hospital. I mean, that kind of thing is apparently openly discussed. I'm sure we're going to hear another side to this, but it's a little unbelievable at this stage of the game if you are a logical person. But anyway, we go on from there. There is another aspect to this, which is the governor has been severely criticized by lots of editorial boards, but he has seemed to care about the Chicago papers the most. That his biggest constituency, of course, is in Chicago. And there were significant discussions about the Tribune Company, the trouble it's in, how they're trying to sell Wrigley Field. And the governor and his advisors were talking about, apparently, trying to get the Tribune management to fire the editorial board. Now, that editorial board has worked hard through repeated editorials with, I recall a headline even before the last election, "The Governor Who Cannot Govern," and then in more recent times they were somewhat on a several-day crusade to try to get the legislature to approve the idea of recall so that voters would have had a chance to vote on casting Blagojevich out of office. So they're talking about doing this for getting state help for a Tribune company to sell Wrigley Field. And again, this is the kind of thing that is getting something of value, which is getting a company to do something with its own employees in exchange for state service. And they talk about not doing it if the good stuff doesn't happen. They even name a guy on the editorial board that they particularly wanted fired. So it's kind of amazing. We'll see what happens next. But the day that a lot of people in Springfield thought would come apparently is here. And the whole country is going to get a good dose of, and people in Illinois are going to get a good dose of even the stuff they had no idea Rod Blagojevich was talking about in the last few months.